Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders with a Heart podcast. I have another yet incredible guest for this show, my new good friend, Scott Hutchings, a fellow Canadian. We met a week ago through a local Toronto entrepreneurs group. And his story really resonated with me because he's doing something incredibly beautiful. He's the founder of a company called Global Coin Solution, which helps charities collect money in any currency. And is doing a lot of good things. We had a lengthy chat just before, so we're gonna cover all of that. I'm very happy that I've connected with him because Scott is a true leader with a heart, and we're gonna talk about that. So, Scott, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Pleasure is all mine. So, first of all, before we start, for people who don't know you, who's Scott?
Who am I? I'm a father. Got two kids of my own. I've got two stepkids. I'm born and raised in the GTA.
For people who don't know, what's a GTA?
GTA,
Because this is
yeah.
an international crowd.
Yes, very true. So actually, no, I have to amend that. I was born in Ottawa,
Oh, wow.
Ottawa, Ontario, and moved to Brampton when I was 3. So the GTA is the Greater Toronto Area. So I've lived in Brampton and Mississauga and Oakville for virtually all of my life. And my office right now, I'm looking out over the Toronto airport here.
Very nice. Awesome. First of all, I'd like to ask you, as I said, I'd like to have a heart-to-heart conversation. I have to have a look at, so to speak, under your hood to see what's in your heart. First of all, Scott, what makes you happy?
Well, family. That's one thing. And I mean, my two children are older, going on 30 and 23, and they live in totally different parts of the world, or totally different parts of Canada right now.
Wow.
My oldest is out in Lake Louise, Alberta, and my youngest is in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. So they're a long way from me. I actually spoke to both of them the other day, which was fantastic. And of course, Sunday was Father's Day, so
Yes.
and they're doing well, and that's all a father can ask for.
Exactly.
My two stepkids are a little bit younger, but no less fantastic. They're both great kids. They're doing well as well. So that's what makes me happy. But also what we do here at Global Coin Solutions, that makes me happy in a different way. So.
Sure. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But tell me, what makes you smile?
These days, it's mostly closer stuff. I mean, we've got the whole situation going on with this not so fun pandemic that's affecting a lot of people. But my other half, she makes me smile. My friends, I've got some good close friends, and again, coming back, I can't be very far away from my company, because it's my company, it's me. Getting to a point with a potential client that they're no longer potential, that they are a client, they're a partner that I'm going to be working with. That makes me smile, because again, when we get down to it, you'll understand why. So
Yes, absolutely. And you told me a bit before, and that actually made me smile big time from here to here. So,
good.
what makes you sad and angry?
Oh, you you've got some pretty deep questions here. Um, Unfortunately, and I would have to say a lot of things surrounding this pandemic do. Um,
Mm,
I'm very very angry with the way things are being handled in Ontario from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. Um, um I don't want to go in too deep on that, but it's I, I I think things could have been handled very differently.
sure.
And then this is not just leveled at the provincial government. This is, it's the entire country in some
Hmm.
cases. And it's what does make me sad, and I don't think we've seen the impact yet. Um, and and I guess it's more fear than it is sadness.
Hmm.
I'm really afraid of what's going to happen when we have line of sight to the impact that this has had on the people.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard stories of businesses that have closed down, of people that have lost their jobs, but we really have not heard the stories of those people who have lost more than that. Um, and that was one of the things that struck me right from the very beginning was, um, how many people are going to lose their homes? How many people? What will happen to our homeless population?
Yes.
And that terrifies me. That's I can't stress that enough.
Oh,
So
yes. A lot of people even, you know, committed suicide as well.
yeah, yeah, and again, it's very quiet. There's
Yeah.
there's not a lot of there's not a lot of discussion going on about that.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. I mean, there's enough negative talk going on right now. We need
Yeah.
more, but if we don't really understand, how can we do anything about it? If we don't understand the impact that this has had on people, if we don't understand, there's a lot of talk about mental health these days. um, and I think we're still only scratching the surface. So
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the lasting effect of that will be something. Oh, yes.
you know,
Let me ask you now some couple of fun questions. You know, when we're growing up as a kid, everybody asks us, so Scott, what do you want to become when you grow up? Let's say it's parents, teachers, friends. What was your answer back then as a kid? You want to
I've
become a hockey player?
no, actually, that was something as a kid I never got to do.
Okay.
We didn't have a lot of money, and so as a kid I played soccer.
Oh, really?
Um,
Wow, nice.
yeah, for 7 years. It was the affordable sport.
Hmm.
Um, and I knew that you were going to
Yes.
ask me that question, because I did hear you ask another on another podcast that you did. And you know what? I honestly don't remember. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what I wanted to do. There's um, I have snippets. At one point in time, I considered going into medicine, and not traditional medicine, but I considered the idea of becoming a pathologist, until
Nice.
I realized that you actually had to become a doctor before you could cut open dead people, kind of thing.
So you're looking for a shortcut, huh?
Well, it was short-sighted. I just didn't have the visibility to it. But
Yeah.
that was pretty short. And no, actually, now that you mention it, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to go into the Canadian Forces, and
Nice.
I wanted to fly fighters.
Me too.
Um, And I recently read a story of somebody who actually achieved what I wanted to do. And I had it in my head. I was going to go into Royal Military College. I was going to become a pilot. I was going to fly fighters. And even though it didn't exist at the time, I wanted to be part of some sort of exchange program with the US military, and I wanted to fly fighters off of aircraft carriers.
Nice.
And I recently read about a Canadian pilot who did just that, but
Wow.
there's only ever been one, and it wasn't me. So that's what I wanted to do.
Maybe the next lifetime.
Maybe, who knows?
Yeah. So that's awesome. So when you were a student in school, what was your favorite subject?
Um, Math, actually. I think I
Nice.
would have to say it was math. I took every math that was available. Um, I took every physics and chemistry course that was available. Um, I took things that were bordering on economics. Um, and I don't know why. I can't really say what attracted me about it, but to this day, math is one of the few things that I use all day, every day. So I
Yeah,
guess it worked out pretty well.
sure. What was your least favorite subject?
Unfortunately, back then, again, lack of visibility and foresight. Languages.
Mm,
French was compulsory for certain grades, and I couldn't get out of it fast enough, unfortunately. So,
yeah. Mm.
and that would come in very handy these days, but
Oh, yes.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. Well, it's never too late.
No,
That's
no.
something. And languages are much easier to learn than mathematics, at least from my perspective, because I was exact opposite of you. I hated math, but I loved languages. That's why I
Okay.
speak 6 languages now. So
Oh, wow.
I'm not done. I want to get to 10 languages, but that's, yeah,
Wow.
one at a time.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Because I believe that languages just open a new window, to a new country, culture.
No question. No
Absolutely.
question.
So, and plus I find it enjoyable. So yeah, that's interesting. So looking back at your path from the time you were a student in school to now, how did you get on your current path? Was it a straight, smooth sailing line? Once you got into one line, one path, you kept at it, or did you have to make turn and twist along the way to get to arrive to where you are now?
No, it was very far from a straight line.
Mm,
Um, I, in high school, of course, back when I was in high school, we had grade 13, so at least we
yes,
had that extra year.
me too. I
Um,
remember that.
yeah, and I'm that is one thing that does make me sad, is that we don't have that available to our kids these days, because somebody 14, 15, 16 years old, they don't have a clue what they want to do. I
Absolutely.
mean, most adults these days don't have a clue what they want to do. Um, but I did find myself
Mm,
going through school with no clear direction as to what I wanted to do. Um, and I I had consciously decided that I was not going to go into computer science uh, back at that time, because everybody was going in that direction. Um, Partway through grade 13, I had thought about automotive design, but by that time, you know, I I had coasted enough that while I had good marks and made the honor roll and that kind of thing, I was not getting into an engineering course. Um, and I came out of high school anyways, and got married very very soon afterwards, by choice. So that, going on to university was not
mhm.
really an option, not a smart, viable option to start a marriage. Um, So I started working for a company. I was working in the warehouse, and I was there for 6.5 years. And what I found was that there wasn't enough of a path for me to take, because I wanted to do more. I wanted to do better. I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to move up, and at the end of the day, not many people in a warehouse do. And the company that I worked for, I'm not joking when I say there are still people doing the same jobs today that I was doing back then, side by side with them. And so moving out of there was the right thing for me. And I actually applied. I started with IBM. They had back then they had retail stores, and I applied to a job posting in the warehouse outlet in Markham, Ontario, and I got that. And it was very interesting because it was a retail store selling computers. I had a computer for 6 months at that time, and was very I wouldn't say afraid of it, but I certainly didn't know my way around the insides of a computer, and I'd never sold anything. So I managed to sell myself and got the job and did very well. I actually, so I started there October 2nd. For the first 2 weeks, I was training. So none of what I was selling was actually counting for me. And I was selling, because I was in the warehouse outlet, I was selling products that were literally half price. They were half price. And I ended up, in the last quarter of that fiscal year, selling the second most amount of revenue in our entire chain.
Wow.
And so, that was who I was, right? I would dive in with both feet. I would give everything that I had, and I would just, overachieve. And it attracted attention from higher ups, and they moved me around to different types of stores. So I actually had experience in all of our stores, and then moved to head office, and then was one of the first two non-management people that were officially hired by IBM. And so that started my IBM career, and did all kinds of different jobs, from sales to marketing to finance to project management, just virtually everything that they had to offer. And I was there for 13.5 years in total. Lenovo ended up buying the IBM PC division, a Chinese company. Mm-hmm. And as with most acquisitions, as they happen, within the first year we had cuts, and I was actually part of those cuts. And again, I wasn't ready to move on, and being who I was, I went and found another job internally, and I was there for another 3 years. And then there was another round of cuts, and this time the cuts were very, very deep. They actually cut more than half the workforce.
Wow.
And by that time, though, a lot had changed. I was ready to leave. I was ready to move on to something different, and as a matter of fact, that something different lined up. So it was perfect. And then I went on to something. I went on to a very, very small business, and I was there for, well, I had already spent a couple of years actually on the side helping build this business up to a point where I could go there. And so I worked there for a while, and then I was in a few different roles. Outside of that, I'd moved on, and I was looking for something different again. And just like everybody in the job market, you apply to this, you apply to that, you have this interview, you have that interview, and many times I heard the response as to why they didn't want to hire me, um, because I didn't specialize. I was, I did marketing, I did sales, I did distribution, I did finance. I had a very broad, diverse background, professional background. And then I applied to this one job and was told your diversity is exactly what we need. And that was the first time that I heard that. And
Nice.
yeah, it was a very nice change.
Sure.
So I literally was all over the place, right? There was no straight and narrow path for me. Um, I started with this other company, and they did something similar to what I do now. Unfortunately, they also had other business lines, and I was there for a year and a half, and they shut down. And that's when Global Coin Solutions was thought of.
Nice.
Um, so for me, it was a case of what do I need to do? What do I want to do? Um, what about the people that I have working for me? And what about the clients that I have? And the clients, by the way, were charities. So had a couple of conversations with a couple of different people, ended up starting Global Coin Solutions, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Beautiful.
So,
Wow. That was must have been quite a journey. You mentioned something that really caught my attention. You said when you started working for that IBM company selling, within a few months you were one of the top sellers. What was your approach that made you be such a rock star seller? What set you apart?
well, it's actually a very interesting situation. So the guy who outsold me, first off, he was selling things that were twice the price that I was selling, right?
Sure.
Um, but he was, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but he was your atypical used car salesman, right? Um, his famous his the only phrase that he ever used was, "This is the greatest thing since sliced bread." It didn't matter. It didn't matter which computer it was. It didn't matter what thing he was trying to sell. That was his phrase. So I was very different. I was more of a consultant. I asked questions. What is it that you want? What is it that you need? What are you trying to do? And I would have people come in and say, okay, this is, I need this. So after you do some needs analysis, you understand that they don't in fact need anything. And I would tell them that if they didn't need a new computer, or they didn't need a new printer, or they didn't need whatever it was they came looking for, I would tell them so. And a lot of times that would result in them buying something anyways, because they felt that they could trust what I was saying. Sometimes they would walk away today, and they'd come back next week, next month, a couple of months later,
Wow.
whatever it might be. But um, I never sold anybody anything that they didn't at least want. And I could feel good about the fact that I never pushed anything on anybody at all.
That's amazing. I think that's the best way to sell because I've used the same thing when I first had my first business. I was selling a high ticket $3,000 vacation package online, and I wasn't trying to just sell for the sake of making sales. And I was first listening to their needs, what they wanted. I was just, pairing them with what they needed because ultimately you want to be able to, as I said earlier, you don't want to make it just win-win. You want to make it a no-brainer.
Yeah,
No-brainer for them, for you, for anyone involved, so that they don't get,
yeah,
they feel good about it, they don't get buyer's remorse, and then ultimately you can at night sleep in peace because it's not just an extra commission. It's not going to change your life, but a peace of mind can change your life, you know?
Yep.
So when you were selling in an ethical manner and not selling people only what was right for them, did you get any push from management saying, hey, you need to push more, you need to maybe offer them this because they might need it? Did you get any, maybe not a push, but maybe a recommendation from your management? Hey, Scott, you're doing awesome, but I think you can do better if you would just upsell them this or offer them this as well.
No, because the results were there.
Mm,
Um, and my response would just simply be, that's not how I do it.
that's
Um,
awesome.
I had, and in today's, keep in mind what's happened with computer prices over the years. So, I started there in 95, October of 95. And in February of 1996, I had moved to the next location that I was going to be at. And I had somebody call. He called on a Saturday. We were open on a Saturday for a few hours. He called on a Saturday asking if we had this specific ThinkPad in stock. I said, yes, I've got 2 of them right here. You sure you've got it? I do. They're right in the cabinet behind me. How much is it? And it's a good thing you're sitting down. It was $10,900 for a laptop.
Wow.
But this is back in 1995, right? And you're sure you've got it? I'm sure I've got it. Okay, can you do anything on the price? I said, I can't. We're owned by IBM. It's an IBM product. They set the price. It is what it is. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. He hung up. A little while later, guy walks into the store, asks if I have this ThinkPad. I said, yes. Go to the cabinet, unlock the cabinet, pull it out. I didn't think you were coming in. Well, the other store that I tried to buy it from, and I won't mention the name, they said they had one, and they didn't. And it was just a bait and switch. They were trying to sell them on a compact product.
Oh no.
And so I showed him the box, showed him exactly what it was. Can you do anything on the price? I said, no, I can't. He said, so why would I buy from you? And I said, we're an IBM store. We are who we are. We're going to take care of you. If something goes wrong, we're here. We'll help you out. We'll do what we need to do. Okay. So he bought the computer. He actually upgraded his memory, which I didn't try to sell him. I mean, I think at the time it was 8 megabytes of RAM,
Oh.
and it was $800. Actually, I think it was $900.
Oh.
And so he bought that as well. We installed it for him, did it right there on the spot, and he went away. And he called or came back in the middle of the week, the CD drive, and it was a CD drive at the time. It didn't work, and I had told him that we would take care of him. I didn't know that there was a problem. He didn't speak to me, but he came in and he saw our sales supervisor, and he did exactly what I told him we would do, which was take care of him. And so he took the other machine out of the cabinet, swapped the CD drive for the customer, sent him on his way. And at the end of the day, if you're honest with people, if you simply tell them what it is you're going to do, and then deliver on what you say that you're going to do, one, you never have to worry about remembering what you told them, because if you told them the truth,
Exactly.
it's just there. You don't
That's the
have to
most
think
important
about it.
part. Yes.
And if you say that you're going to stand behind them and that you're going to support them, do it. So, no, I mean, nobody in management ever challenged my ability to sell to people. If they had ever seen me walk a customer out the door because they didn't need to buy something, I I can stand behind what I did, and I can stand behind what what I did with the customer because the integrity is there. So
Beautiful.
I, you know,
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing because now, especially nowadays, a lot of people are just trying to sell no matter what, but that's the wrong approach because this is a lose-lose, approach. That's not the way to build a long-standing business or build a relationship. No, for
no,
sure.
no.
I'm sure you've heard the saying that says, "Change your story, change your life." We all have had to change our story at one point or another. When you had to change your story in order to get closer to your goals and dreams, how did you do it? How did you change your story so that you can get in line with the on the right path to achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Well, um, like I said, the company before this one, so we did something, we did similar work to what I'm doing now. Um, I literally fell into that opportunity. Um, I wasn't looking for that specific thing, and to be quite frank, I could never have found it, even if I was looking for it, and I never would have known to have looked for it because there are so few organizations that do this. Um, so I literally fell into it. I was looking for a change, and I saw this job posting on LinkedIn. Yes, I applied to a job through LinkedIn, and I got the job through LinkedIn.
Nice.
Um, but it was just in that case, I got lucky all around. The job description was written in such a way that I looked at it and said, you know what, I can do that. It's different. I don't know what the I don't know what the company does based on the job description, but I could do what they were asking of me, and part of the reason I could do that was because of the diversity of jobs that I'd had, the different roles that I'd had over the years. So it just it almost it seemed like it was written for me from a job perspective, not in what it did. So I got super lucky, and I'll tell you, once I had the initial the introduction in the first interview and understood what the company did, um, it just blew me away because the opportunity to be able to help was untapped, completely untapped. There was no limit to the amount of good that I could do or that I could do on behalf of the company. Um, and then when that company closed their doors, um, that thought never left me. The yes, I needed a job. Yes, my people needed a job. Yes, my clients needed somebody to do what we were doing, to continue to support them. But that was still only a fraction of um, what could be done here to help other people. And even before the pandemic, I've still only scratched the surface, if I've actually scratched the surface. Um, so I got lucky. It wasn't that I found it and I knew that was the right thing to do. Um, it really was just it was dumb luck on my part. But since then, it really has been life changing.
You mentioned luck, but if there's one theme that especially that we hear about very successful entrepreneurs and even athletes is that they're not lucky. They create their own luck by being there, by being proactive, looking for it. What are your thoughts on that? Were you really lucky or you created that luck? You put yourself in that situation to be at the right spot at the right time. And after that, it's just a matter of you just grabbing it.
Yeah. No, that is very true, and perhaps it's luck is just an overused word. Um, no, I was, the timing was right. I was
Mhm.
looking, they were looking, I was looking in the right place. Um, I was able to see what the potential was just in the job, like I said. And then, when I sat down for the interview, and I was the first interview of the day. Um, so the person who was interviewing me, who was a great guy, um, he explained the way the process was going to go. So the way it was going to work was, he had 6 interviews lined up that day. When all the interviews were completed, he was then going to review everything, and the next day he would contact those. He was going to contact everybody, obviously, but he was then going to schedule a second interview for the final candidates. And the interview went in such a way that the second interview was scheduled before the first one was over.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there may have been some luck involved in the timing, the fact that I was looking for the job and that they were looking for me. Um, but when it came to the interview itself, no, without any question at all, I agree 100%. I mean, that was on me. It wasn't luck. Um, and he and I clicked in such a way. And once I understood what it was that the company actually did, um, I could just see myself elevating it beyond where it was, and I could see the potential in being able to help so many people, and it just, that passion took over, and it really helped me sell myself, and what I felt that I could do.
Makes sense. Wow, beautiful story. Tell us a little bit about your business and what you do exactly with Global Coin Solutions.
So, in a nutshell, we
First of all,
enable.
what's the genesis of that? How did you get into that?
Well, so like I said, I applied to this position on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
um, and I didn't know what they did. And it wasn't until the first interview that I really understood what what the work was that they were doing. Um, and so what I did with the other company, and what I do now is, and we enable charities to collect donations in any currency. Um, that's the short of it. The long of it is, most organizations that are involved in foreign currency fundraising, which is what I call it, um, most organizations outside of places like the UK and Europe and Australia and New Zealand, most organizations are actually airlines, and they're naturals for it, because you know how does money move around the world? It's in our pockets, it's in our purses, it's in our luggage. It's people moving money around, and we do it mostly on airplanes. So there are dozens of airlines around the world that have programs where they ask their passengers to donate whatever they have in their pockets or their purses to either a charity, a specific charity that they support, or in some cases they actually have foundations, which then they divvy up the money based on the different criteria that they've got set aside. Um, and so that's what we do. Now, since day one, with the other company, and of course with Global Coin Solutions now, um, what I have endeavored to do in Canada and the US is bring this from the air. So this is not just something that airlines and airports can do exclusively. This is something that any charity can do, because at the end of the day, the airline or the airport is only collecting a very small fraction of the amount of money that's being moved around. You know, we get home from vacation, or we get home from a business trip. If we weren't on an airline that asks for donations, or we were asleep, or we were reading, or we, you know, whatever may have happened, they didn't ask, you didn't give that money away. Then you walk through the airport, and now you're worried about collecting your luggage. You want to get to the, you know, you want to get to your car, you want to get home, you need an Uber or a cab, whatever it may be, but you've got other priorities. And so donating your money, it may not be something that you consider doing. You may not even see the container as you walk through the airport.
Mhm.
And most people are in that boat. Most people don't give it away on an airplane. They don't give it away inside an airport. So it goes home with you, whether it's by accident or intentionally. You know, you might keep it for a souvenir. You might, oh, I'm going to go back, so I'm not going to throw away everything I've got in the airport before I leave the country. I'll bring it home and I'll bring it back when I go. But people don't do that. You know, your next vacation, you're worried about getting to the airport on time. Do I have my passport? Do I have my ticket? Did I forget my bathing suit, right? I mean, you worry about the important things. And so you don't remember about the loose change. You might remember your banknotes, the bills, but you don't remember the coins. So what we have found is that there is, and this is legitimate, it's a staggering amount of money. There's somewhere between $2 and $3 billion of foreign currency that's sitting in homes across Canada.
Wow.
This is
Not
just
just
Canada.
in Canada.
This
What
is
would be the
just Canada.
figures globally? Do you have any idea?
Oh, it's staggering. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Hundreds of
It would,
billions?
yeah.
Maybe a
Well,
trillion?
it would certainly approach $1 billion or $100 billion for sure.
Wow.
You know, I say that there's somewhere in excess of 10 billion in the U.S., but that is a super conservative number, and it's probably somewhere between 30 and 50 billion dollars. I mean, it's just it's a staggering amount of money. In England, as an example, England, virtually every charity in England has a foreign currency program. It's just something that every charity does. There's actually a couple of charities in different parts of the world. One is in Ireland, one is in New Zealand. The entire charity is built upon collecting foreign currency.
Wow.
That's it. Nothing else. It's and yet here in Canada, we don't do this. And that's what I'm trying to change.
Why do you think we don't do it in Canada?
We're very different than the UK. So if you look at the UK as an example, there's a body of water, and then you have 30 European countries. And before the euro came out, those 30 European countries had 30 different currencies.
Some still do.
So
Yeah.
some and there's only I think it's 19 countries that are on the
Yes.
euro.
Mhm.
So it for England, it makes a lot of sense. For Europe, it makes a
Sure.
lot of sense. Where it gets really confusing is how charities in Australia and New Zealand could operate the same way. They operate with the expectation that people have foreign currency, and they actually ask them to donate that. And I mean, Australia and New Zealand are the farthest away from everybody, and they're islands upon themselves. So it's not like you can just drive to get there. You got to fly. They're very, very different. So why we don't do this in Canada is beyond me. Why we don't do it in the US, again, is beyond me. But I'm working to change that. And
So does that mean that let's say I'm a Japanese and I want to donate to a charity in Canada, My only way to do it is to do it through Canadian dollars. I cannot do it through Japanese yen.
If physically, if you have that money, yes, we see, with the airline partners and the charities that we do work with, we see somewhere, or we have seen somewhere between 120 and maybe 150, 160 different currencies. So
Wow.
we see a lot. We see a lot, and this is with North American clients. So
Hmm.
that means that there are that many different currencies that are just floating around. Because again, we're only getting a very, very small fraction of what's out there.
So
So
you're working right now, from what I understand, you're working with a few airlines. And what would you say is your biggest challenge when it comes to you approaching other businesses?
so to answer your first question, yes, we work with 3 Canadian airlines and one American airline, and approaching other organizations about this, the biggest challenge is that they've just never heard of it. That's the answer that I get all the time. I've never heard of it, but it sounds like a great idea. Um, but, and there's always a but, um, part of the challenge that happens is it depends on the charity. Some charities are only built to collect big checks from big donors and big corporations. I get it. That's pretty straightforward. Um, but then other charities are built around, nickels and dimes. Um, Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons created their own children's foundation, and they support their camps. They built a whole network of camps throughout North America, and they used to actually accept foreign currency, but they never told anybody.
Really?
they never
Wow.
told any they never told anybody. um, and it just, they've got a coin box program, which at its peak was collecting $7-8 million a year, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters at a time, and a small portion of that was foreign currency. um, but because it is an unknown to charities, they, even though they might say that they think that this is a great idea, they can't wrap their heads around how they can go about getting it done. And that's part of the struggle. Um,
Wow.
I mentioned to you that we're working with the one of the boards of trade um, in Ontario here, Southern Ontario, and I presented them with a program, and they liked the idea because it's not just about raising money for the charity. I've structured it in such a way and explained it in such a way that what will end up happening is, by having their members collect foreign currency and promote the collection of foreign currency, it will actually drive customer traffic, foot traffic to the businesses. So it's going to, especially after we're coming out of this pandemic, it will help drive potential customers to them. It will give the community a great sense of understanding that these businesses, even though they've been hurting, that they are there to support the community. And of course, then when the funds are collected, they're going to end up going back to the food bank, the major food bank that supports the entire city.
Hmm.
Um, so, it's beyond win-win. Um, it helps in so many different ways, and it's just a very positive result using something that people can't use. And that's the real kicker about this whole thing. You know, you can have a truckload of euro coin sitting in front of a Starbucks. You can't buy a coffee with it. But if I've got that truckload of euro coin at my back door, I can then ship that back to Europe and turn that into money that a charity can use for a lot of good things.
Why do you have to ship it back to Europe? Why can't you just change it to the local bank into local currency and just use it straight up?
Your local bank doesn't want Canadian coin. They don't want somebody else's coin from another country. And you can't spend euro coin here,
Mhm.
right?
Wow.
So that is, there's no question, that's the tricky part of what I do is I move money around the world, and that's the only way to realize its value.
Wow.
So it's different, it's unique, and at the end of the day, everything that we do here puts people to work because it's manual, right?
Hmm.
Separating one currency from another currency from another currency, you know, I'm working on one collection right now from an airline, and I'm going to probably see 40, 50 different currencies. Um, I'm going to see coins from all over the world, and there's no machinery that can separate that. There's none. There are different ways. I will acknowledge there are different ways. I could run it through one machine and then change the settings and run it through again, but that would end up being actually more work than just separating it all by hand. So, but that's also one of the philosophies, one of the core principles that this company is built on.
Hmm.
We help charities, and we put people to work.
Yes, that's very
So
commendable. I want you to tell us more about that second aspect, which is putting people to work. And just before going live, you mentioned that you're doing something incredible, which is you're giving jobs to people who would normally would have a hard time finding jobs, such as handicapped people and autistic people. Tell us more about that.
yeah, so some of what we end up doing is very, very repetitive. And
Hmm.
so for people without autism, doing super repetitive tasks, our brains just are not wired that way. And I can tell you from personal experience, um, you know, my brain tunes out after about 20 minutes of doing some of these different things. And you know, you at that point, of course, you know, you lose productivity. You can't do things as fast. And I mean, that's one side effect. The other side effect is that if it wasn't me, I mean, it's my company, right? So I'm going to do everything and anything that I need to do. Um, but if I were to hire the average person to do these jobs, they might last a week or two before they say, forget it, I'm done. I'm out of here. I can't do this. This is just, it's not for me. So by actually hiring people with autism, it serves many purposes, but not the least of which is it gives these people who may in some instances have never had a job in their life. And one of the first people that I hired, she had never worked before.
Wow.
She was a little bit older. She had never had a job. She lived in a group home, and she came in here and she was, you know, very um, non-verbal. I mean, she would talk, but it took time for her to get comfortable with you. And if she wasn't comfortable with you and you tried to talk to her, she'd just look at you sideways and not say anything. But what I heard back from her worker and from the people in her home um, was something that I never, in my wildest dreams, ever. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Um, she, I was told that after she started working here, her whole demeanor changed. She became a completely new person at home, at the group home. She
Sure.
was happier. She was more outgoing. Um, and that's a positive side effect that, quite frankly, I don't think anybody could have ever explained to me. I don't know that anybody would have ever known.
Yeah, the fact that you give her an opportunity, give her more self belief in herself, and that's the starting point for greatness, and being again a normal feeling that you're valued. You know, that's one of the
Yeah,
most powerful human basic needs. To feel of
yeah.
being valued, yeah, and respected. Absolutely, that's amazing. That's very commendable.
Well,
Um,
and I don't want to come off here as portraying myself as altruistic or anything like that. I mean, there's no question. There's a selfish component to it. And the selfishness was that I needed people with the the right abilities to be
mhm.
able to do the job and to do something repetitive, but with an eye to detail. And that's one thing that I've heard over and over again, that different parts of the spectrum, um, people with autism will catch things that you and I won't see. They see things differently. So without any question, I mean, part of it was selfish. I needed the right people with the right ability to be able to do that job. Um, but they, I've had a number of different people through here, just like everybody else. People with autism are different, and not everyone is capable of doing the same thing that the one before them was able to do. So finding the right people, finding the right people with the right demeanor, with the right ability, um, it took time. And before the pandemic, the last person with autism that I had in here, he'd been here for over 2 years, and I'm looking forward to the day when I can reach out and see if he would be interested in coming back. Um, because that having the ability to help other people, and as you said, in some cases they might be unemployable in most scenarios. um, Being able to give them that job, it gives you a sense of pride and satisfaction, and knowing that you're doing something that helps them in a way that most people can't give them. um, it's hard to describe. It really is.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's your driving force behind all of this? What's pushing you? What's your ultimate
um,
reason to do that?
to be quite honest, I mean, if it was somebody different on the other end of this asking the question, you might laugh. um, but the driving force is really just simply to be able to help. um,
Beautiful.
we are built with the intention of helping charities. Yes, we do support organizations like transit, organizations that do handle large amounts of cash. They get foreign currency mixed in, so we help them with that. But over 90%, somewhere between 90 and 95% of everything that we do is based in charity. And to be able to give back, um, I may not be able to give my own dollars because I'm not there yet. Um, but to be able to turn something that has no value and put it back into all kinds of different charities, whether it's humanitarian effort, um, food banks, helping the homeless, helping children. I mean, we help all kinds of charities, and you know, there's no limit. There's so much money out there, as I said, $2 to $3 billion. Um, we could well, before the pandemic, we were processing just under $3 million a year
Oh,
in mixed foreign currency. That's what the value ended up being, um, and that's nothing compared to what's available. That is absolutely nothing.
another fraction, yeah. Mhm.
So there's so much more good that can be done. There's so much more fundraising, and funds that can be generated for all kinds of different charities, big, small, it doesn't matter. Um, we can help anybody and everybody. And that's what we're looking to do.
What kind of charities are you most passionate yourself? Or cause, basically.
Um, well, so I have a son with cerebral palsy.
Mhm.
Um, so needless to say, children and disabilities is definitely close to my heart. But one of the things that just one of the areas that strikes me as a human being, especially in North America, because we have not conquered this,
Mhm.
is homelessness.
Yes.
And you and I were talking before and earlier in this podcast, actually. Um, one of the things that does scare me right now is what could happen to the homeless population in Canada and in the U.S. The number of people that have lost their jobs, companies have closed. Um, in Canada, we did have a program where banks deferred mortgage payments for 6 months. Um, the scary thing is this has gone on for,
Almost 2 years
you
now.
know, yeah, I mean, we're 15 to 18 months since the first outbreaks of COVID. Um, I I I'm afraid what's going to happen to people's lives. I'm afraid that homelessness is going to become super rampant. And unlike, you know, cancer, um, unlike COVID, um, unlike a lot of diseases out there, homelessness is something that is societal. There are some countries that do not have any homeless. They have figured out how to solve that problem. And I don't think that it's beyond us as human beings to take care of other human beings. This is something that we can solve.
Absolutely.
Um, and and I would love to be able to work with a homeless organization to help them. The problem, of course, is they're just, and they know this. They're the first ones that will tell you. They're just band-aiding the situation. They're plugging gaps that we have left them to plug. Um,
Mhm.
so to be able to help one of them, you know, that's that, that really would satisfy me. Um,
Beautiful. Yeah. That's something that's much bigger that needs a more like intervention from at the government level to really tackle things, review a few key aspect of the policies and all that, because that's not something that couple of entrepreneurs can change. Sure, we can help, we can start,
Yeah.
we can ignite the fire in others to do so. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the big boys, the governments, and the big corporations to step in and do something at a much bigger scale. But that's also ultimately what I'm trying to, in my own small way, to do with my podcast, is to create a platform to bring enlightened entrepreneurs to share the story so we can inspire. Because as I told you before we went live, not any single person can change the world, but if me and you and anyone listening and anyone coming on our podcast, we can inspire just one person to do good and help someone else, and that person goes on and up another one, and so on and so forth. Before long, we can have a global movement that we can change, the
Yeah.
direction of this world towards more positivity. Slowly, step by step, each and every single one of us can do something in our own little, small, limited sphere of influence, no matter how small it might, more, no matter how small, how insignificant it might seem to us. But every little drop helps, especially when it comes to these people. And I'm not just talking about homeless. I'm talking about other people as well. For me, I'm very passionate about high sight, and that's what I'm doing with my brand. I'm going to be launching a new brand soon, and for each product I sell, I will be donating a pair of eyeglasses to someone that needs it but cannot afford it.
Right.
Because being able to see, it's like, try living without, even me, for example. If I just remove my glasses, I can see, but I cannot read, and it's not going to allow me to function normally. So a lot of people are suffering from that. So we can all contribute in a way that makes sense, and a cause that is dear to our heart, and that resonates with our, clientele, customer base, whatever audience, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, we can all do something. Doesn't matter. You don't have to start with $1 million donation. No, it's not just about donating money. A lot of them, it can be just, as I told you earlier, when you see homeless, just treating them with respect, with dignity. Hey, how are you? How's your day? Just talk to them as human being. Don't look past the way that they look. They're not looking their best. They're not wearing the nicest clothes. Just look beyond the outside, beyond the cover. Look at
Yeah.
what's in, just like as I told you earlier. I want to talk, have a heart to heart conversation, look at what's inside the heart of the person, not just the title of the person. Same thing here. When you meet someone on the street, don't just look at what they're wearing or how they look. Try to look beyond that. Because ultimately it's about not the body. The body is just a temporary vehicle. Try to look at the soul. That's what most matters. So yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. That's something that's really, it's really touching me as well. And hopefully we can together, and by together I mean all of us entrepreneurs, we don't need to change the world. All we need is just try to help and inspire just one person, and we
Yeah.
pass it forward, and before you know it, I was talking with. I've been blessed to have amazing, guests on my podcast. One lady recently said that we're talking about the power of smiling, and she said that that it takes about 3,000 muscles just for you to smile, and for you to smile, she said that if each and every single one of us, sorry, if 10% each day were to smile to 10 other person, and they go on and so forth, within 24 hours, the entire planet will be smiling.
Yeah.
Think about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
It doesn't cost you anything. Just say, hi, how are you? How's just a smile. Or even not saying anything. You walk on the street, you see someone, just a smile, a genuine
Yeah.
smile, and see it's going to make the world, you know? And that's going to be the start of everything. When you smile, you're happy, you're grateful, you're not slouching, you're not depressed, and that's going to make you more productive.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a snowball effect. So yeah, so that's incredible. So I really admire what you're doing, Scott. You're doing God's work on this planet. We definitely need more people like you. Even though at times you might feel frustrated and even hopeless at times that what you're doing is not enough. There's so much more you can do. What you're doing is already pretty big, pretty enough. You know. So again, if you can inspire one person, one company, whatever, just snowball from there. How are you
Thank you.
contacting company? You're welcome. How are you contacting, approaching companies? How are you spreading the word about what you're doing?
Um, for the most part, it's cold calling, um, and cold. It's cold contact. Um, there certainly have been some referrals. There's no question about that. Um, but for the most part, um, it's me reaching out through LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
it's through email, um, sometimes phone calls, that kind of thing. It just depends, but usually it's cold contact. So
And what would you say, as we say in the world of marketing, what's your conversion rate so far from the time you contact someone to them saying yes, roughly speaking?
it's very low.
Mm-hmm.
My contact rate alone is very low because it's, I can't just plaster stuff out there. I can't use and I won't use like an email program, for example. I will not just scattershot stuff out there. Everything is
Sure.
personalized. And typically what I do is I start with the charities.
Mm-hmm.
And I very seldom ever reach out to an actual business or corporation. Um, and I do that because if the charity adds this as a component of how they fundraise, or an option for their donors or their supporters to put their own program together, um, then it can snowball. If I go to a business first, they're not about fundraising, right? It's usually, if a business is involved with fundraising, whether it's internally or it's writing a check or whatever the case may be, it's because they've established a relationship with that charity and they're incorporating some of their methods of fundraising in with their employees, or they're just simply writing a check. Um, but but for the most part, like I said, it's reaching out to charities, having the conversation with them. I have reached out to some businesses. It usually doesn't amount to a whole heck of a lot. Um, getting new airlines on board, for example, that's a very lengthy process. Um,
Sure.
so it I don't I'm not adding new charities, new organizations on an ongoing basis, unfortunately, at this time.
Do you have a team around you to help you, or just by yourself?
Well, before COVID, I had employees involved with the sorting of the currency, the all of the work that had to be done around that, and I was left to develop the company, you know, bring in possible charities, the whole sales and development side of things. Since COVID, I've unfortunately had to lay off my staff. So I'm literally doing it all now. And it doesn't leave a lot of time for development, which does also mean that there's still work that I'm doing. So that's a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I still try to reach out to a couple of different organizations a week, sort of thing. Um, and there are programs that are coming up. As I mentioned, I've got the one program with the Board of Trade, um, that should actually open doors to other boards of trade throughout Southern Ontario, and we could have a domino effect there, because I do believe that community activity, can really make this thing happen, as opposed to a national program, for example. A national program is going to take lots of resource, lots of money, lots of advertising, marketing, social media, whereas a community-based endeavor, it's close to home. Um, in a lot of cases, it's a neighbor helping another neighbor,
Exactly.
and it's a very, very different thing. So, um, we'll see. I hope that we're going to see this one launch in July.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as soon as there's some official documentations, announcements, I'll be blasting it out everywhere that I can, because
That's
that's
fantastic.
part of what we do.
Fantastic.
So,
Okay, that's amazing. That's awesome. I really love what you're doing. Yeah, that's for sure. We can talk for hours and hours because I can see the passion in you and I can see that you have a beautiful heart. We're totally connected on that, but we'll have to wrap this up soon. We may do a follow up in a few months to see how things are evolving. But for now, let me end this with asking you some fun questions. First of all, do
okay,
you have your own podcast?
I do not.
Okay, so imagine that you have your podcast, and today you have the most special guest in the world, which is yourself. What would be the first question you would ask yourself? And by the first question, I don't mean something. I don't want you to think too much or too hard about it. Tell me what is the first question that pops in your head.
Oh, geez, that's um, holy smokes, that's a tough one. Um,
What is the first one that comes to your mind? The first one. Don't think too
well,
hard.
I think the normal first question I think would be, how did you get into doing what you're doing? Um, especially given that this is so different.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I think that would be it.
Okay. Imagine now that you have a time machine and you're sitting face to face with your 18-year-old self. Knowing all that you know now, what would be your number one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self?
Um, actually, that one's pretty simple. Um, so I mentioned I came right out of high school and worked for a company for 6.5 years. Um, I gave everything that I had to that company, and I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought that I thought that they would take care of me. I thought that there was an opportunity to grow and so on. Um, what I learned from that was, you got to look for opportunities. You
Absolutely.
cannot focus solely on one thing. Um,
Absolutely.
and and if an opportunity presents itself, you need to explore it. That's the bottom line.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Hmm. Now imagine now that you're sitting that you're sitting face to face with God. Okay, and God looks at you and say, "Listen, Scott, you've been an amazing human being, and I want to reward you. I want to grant you one superpower for the rest of your life. Which one would it be?"
Um, well, that's that's a hard one. The ability to help more people. And I know that that's not your traditional superpower. And if that meant, um, super strength or invulnerability, or, you know, um, you and I talked earlier about different world situations and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, I can't imagine what people in Syria over the past 10 years have gone through, or
Sure.
what's happening right now, in the Middle East. To be able to walk in there and be able to help people, um, and not worry that I'm going to get shot. Um, so like I
Yes.
said, if that was invulnerability, um, to be able to help them, like that would be tremendous.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. That's just a testament of your beautiful heart. Wow, that's amazing. Would you have any? What parting tips do you have to someone that's watching or listening and they would like to help more and make an impact, or just any general parting tips to anyone listening?
Well, the believe in yourself. Um, as I said, I came out of high school. Um, I don't have a post-secondary education. I worked hard. Um, and I've been able to do things that I think some people would have struggled with possibly. Others, no
Mhm.
question, they would have trucked on through. But believing in yourself, I honestly believe, and I've had to think about this with the whole situation that we're facing right now. Small business owner, I got a small business, what's going to happen? Um, but at the end of the day, my answer is I'm not going anywhere. My company is not going anywhere. One way or another, it's going to survive. I'm going to make sure that it does. Um, I believe
Absolutely.
in what I'm doing. I believe in what we're doing, and I am not going to let it fail. And I'm going to come out of this, and I'm going to help more people than I did before it. So
Absolutely.
believe in yourself.
That's wonderful. What's the best way to, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, everything, all the contact information is on my website. It's globalcoinsolutions.com. It's pretty straightforward. I'm Scott at globalcoinsolutions.com. So if somebody wants to email me, you'll get me directly. Our phone number is on the website. Um, Emails on the website. There's a contact form. We're accessible
Okay,
here. So
that's wonderful. Listen, Scott, it's been an absolute honor, a pleasure, and a blast talking to you. I love your passion and what you're doing. You're doing God's world on this planet. Keep trucking, keep spreading the good, the hope around you and around the world. One day at a time, one company at a time, one charity at a time, one person at a time. And stay safe. God bless, my friend. And we'll definitely keep in touch, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great day,
thank you
my
very
friend.
much.
Take care. Bye bye.